The pension investigator did not raise her voice when she destroyed my half-sister's story. She placed a printed obituary in the center of the conference table, turned it toward Celeste, and rested one finger beneath the date. Leonard Shaw died on February 11th, she said. Your beneficiary form says he watched Raymond Ellison sign it on October 19th. For the first time that morning, Celeste stopped talking. Our father had been dead for nearly 4 months. During that time, Celeste had called herself his sole beneficiary, accused me of stealing his records, and told half our family that I was contesting his final wishes because I could not stand losing. She had already received pension money. She had nearly moved the rest into a new account. She had even offered to withdraw a police complaint against me if I signed away every claim I had. Until that moment, she still believed the document in front of her looked official enough to survive. It had our father's signature. It had a seal. It had a commission number and a journal entry. Every important box was filled. The only problem was that the man who supposedly notarized it had been buried 8 months before the form was signed. I wish I could say that was the moment I understood everything. It was not. The dead notary was only the first lie. The truth was worse because part of Celeste's story was real. Our father had wanted to help her. He had discussed increasing her pension share. The signature on the form really was his. And when I finally learned how Celeste had built the document, I discovered that she had not done it because our father left her with nothing. She did it because he had already given her more than me. And even that was not enough. My name is Mara Ellison. I was 46 when my father died. And by then, I had spent 7 years handling the parts of his life that required dates, passwords, receipts, and patience. I worked as an operations manager for a regional medical supply company. My job was not glamorous, but it trained me to notice small contradictions before they became expensive ones. A payment posted twice, a signature dated before an approval, a vendor number that belonged to the wrong account. My father, Raymond, used to tease me about it. You can find trouble in a clean ledger, he would say. No, I would tell him. I find the place someone tried to clean too hard. After he developed heart problems, he gave me access to his bill pay account and a locked metal cabinet in his study. I did not own his money. I did not make his decisions. I simply made sure the decisions he made were carried out. I scheduled his cardiology appointments. I renewed his homeowner's insurance. I kept copies of his tax returns and pension statements. When he changed medications, I wrote the new dosage on an index card and taped it inside the kitchen cabinet because he hated looking things up on his phone. Celeste was 39, 7 years younger than me. We shared a father, but not a mother. She was charming in a way I had never learned to be. She could arrive late, bring flowers, and somehow make everyone forget who had been there all week. She owned a small salon called Glass and Gold. It looked successful from the street. Inside, it was held together by overdue rent, supplier extensions, and money our father quietly sent whenever she said the next month would be different. I knew about some of those payments because he asked me to transfer them. Do not lecture her, he once said after sending $12,000 to stop an eviction. I am not lecturing her. You are thinking very loudly. I smiled because that was how we spoke to each other. But the money worried me. Celeste never treated help as help. After a few weeks, it became something she believed should have happened sooner. Still, I did not hate her. I paid for a new water heater in her house when she was between loans. I covered 2 months of her daughter's tuition when Celeste's accounts were frozen. Every time I told myself it was the last rescue, another emergency arrived wearing a different coat. My father saw the pattern. He also believed Celeste was more fragile than I was. Mara lands on her feet, he told my aunt once, not realizing I was in the hallway. Celeste needs a softer place to fall. That sentence stayed with me because families often mistake competence for immunity. If you are the person who survives, people begin to act as if nothing costs you. When my father entered the hospital for the final time, he sent me a message at 2:14 in the morning. If anything happens, Take the blue folders from the cabinet. Do not leave originals in the house. I answered, "Nothing is happening tonight. Get some sleep." He reacted with a thumbs up. It was the last message he ever sent me. My father died on a Tuesday morning with both of us in the hospital room. Celeste arrived 20 minutes before he passed. She stood on his left side and held his hand. I stood on his right and watched the monitor because looking at numbers was easier than accepting what they meant. 3 days later, we held a memorial gathering at his house. By 6 that evening, the neighbors had gone home. Paper plates were stacked beside the sink. My Aunt Denise was wrapping untouched cake in foil. I was collecting condolence cards when Celeste asked the immediate family to stay. She had changed clothes after the service. The black dress was gone. She wore cream trousers and our father's gold watch. I noticed the watch because he had promised it to my son. Celeste sat at the dining table and placed a clear plastic sleeve in front of her. Inside was a form bearing the letterhead of the Midland Foundry Pension Trust, the private plan from the company where our father had worked for 34 years. "I was going to wait," she said, "but Mara has already started removing financial records, so I think everyone should know what Dad decided." The room became still. She slid copies around the table. The form named Celeste as the 100% beneficiary of our father's supplemental survivor pension. Based on the most recent statement I had seen, the benefit was worth a little more than $500,000 if paid over the full term. I read the first page twice. The signature looked like my father's. Beneath it was a notary block dated 11 days before he died. Leonard Shaw's name was stamped below a dark circular seal. My Aunt Denise looked at me. "Did you know about this?" "No." Celeste folded her hands. He did not want an argument. "Then why announce it before the dishes are cleared?" I asked. She ignored the question. She said our father had asked her to visit privately in his final weeks. He had been worried about her mortgage and the salon. He believed I was financially secure and wanted to do something for the daughter who needed him most. The words were chosen carefully. She was not simply claiming the money. She was assigning meaning to it. Celeste needed him. I had only managed him. Uncle Paul leaned back in his chair. Raymond had a right to choose. I did not say he did not. "Your face says enough," Celeste replied. Then she asked me to hand over the blue folders from the study. "I am handling the pension and the remaining financial matters," she said. "There is no reason for you to keep controlling everything." The folders include tax records, insurance policies, and original account statements. You are not the executor. Neither are you? I know. That answer irritated her more than an argument would have. She leaned closer. "Dad made a decision without asking your permission. You need to accept it." Several relatives looked away. No one asked why the daughter who had managed every bill had never been told about a $500,000 change. No one asked why our father had used a notary whose office he had not visited in years. The document gave them an easy conclusion, and grief makes people grateful for conclusions. I gathered the copies and placed them back on the table. "I will verify it with the plan," I said. Celeste gave a small, tired laugh, as if I had proved her point. Before I left, Aunt Denise followed me into the hallway. "Do not let money turn this ugly," she whispered. I looked past her at Celeste wearing our father's watch. "The money did not bring the form into this room," I said. She did. The first pension payment reached Celeste's account 3 weeks later. She announced the deposit in our family group chat, then posted a photograph from a kitchen showroom. Within days, the sister who had been facing foreclosure was pricing new cabinets. My relatives praised our father for protecting her, while I became the difficult daughter expected to applaud. 2 weeks later, a white envelope arrived at my home from the Midland Foundry Pension Trust. I almost placed it with the mail I was forwarding to the estate. Then I saw my full name above my Social Security number, with only the final 4 digits visible. The letter was a beneficiary tax election notice. It stated that a request had been made to correct my identifying information and redirect future correspondence to an address I did not recognize. I read it standing beside the mailbox. The notice made no sense. According to Celeste's form, I had been removed completely. There should have been no tax election under my name and no reason for anyone to change my information. I called the plan that afternoon. The representative, a man named Daniel, was careful with every answer. "I cannot discuss another beneficiary's claim," he said. "I am asking why my social security number is attached to an account from which I was supposedly removed." There was a pause and the faint sound of typing. "Your identifying information remains in the beneficiary record." "In what capacity?" "I cannot confirm that until we verify your identity and review the file." He asked me a series of questions. Then his tone changed. "Ms. Ellison, did you authorize someone to correct your mailing address last month?" "No." "Did you submit a tax withholding election?" "No." "Did you give anyone permission to use your social security number in connection with a survivor benefit?" "No." He stopped typing. "I recommend that you submit a written identity dispute today. I will place a note on the record, but a compliance reviewer will need to determine what happened." I asked whether the disputed form could be suspended. "I cannot promise an outcome," he said. "I can only document that you deny authorizing the changes." That was the first time I felt fear rather than humiliation. Celeste might have taken the benefit, but someone had kept my identity connected to the file. I did not know whether that meant taxes, repayment liability, or something else. I only knew that my name had been used inside paperwork I had never seen. I completed the dispute online. The form asked me to upload any relevant documents. I had only Celeste's copy of the beneficiary designation, so I scanned it at high resolution. Before attaching it, I enlarged the notary block. Leonard Shaw. The name was familiar. My father had used him years earlier for a vehicle title affidavit. I searched the state notary database first. His commission showed as closed. Then I searched his full name with the town where he had worked. The obituary appeared on the first page. Leonard Martin Shaw, age 68, had died on February 11th after a short illness. Celeste's form claimed he watched our father sign on October 19th. I checked the year 3 times. Then I opened the funeral home notice and looked at the photograph. It was the same man whose business card I remembered seeing in my father's files. I sat at my kitchen table with the pension form on one side and a dead man's obituary on the other. The document did not look questionable anymore. It looked impossible. I did not call Celeste. That was the first useful decision I made. Usually, I solved family problems before anyone noticed them. This time, I preserved the evidence first. I saved the commission record, obituary, payment announcement, identity change notice, and Celeste's beneficiary form before submitting my dispute. 4 days later, a compliance investigator named Andrea Holt called me. Her voice was calm and almost flat, but she asked precise questions. Where had I obtained the form? Had I seen the original? When did Celeste first display it? Did my father normally sign in black ink or blue? Who had access to his locked cabinet? I answered only what I knew. Then I asked whether she had found the obituary. "I did," she said. "There is another problem. Every pension form issued by the trust carried a revision code in the lower right corner. Celeste's copy showed revision 05/24. The trust had introduced that version in May. Leonard Shaw died in February. Even if my father had signed an older document while Leonard was alive, Leonard could not have notarized a form that had not yet been created. Andrea explained that the plan would place the designation under administrative review. She would not call it fraud. She would not tell me whether Celeste's payment would stop permanently. She said only that future disbursements might be delayed while the record was examined. "What happens to the money she already received?" I asked. "That depends on whether the designation is accepted, corrected, or rejected. We are not there yet." No one declared me the winner. A questionable document had triggered a review. That was all. The next morning, Celeste called me before 7. "What did you send them?" she asked. "An identity dispute. My payment is on hold. I did not authorize anyone to change my address or use my social security number. You are doing exactly what I told everyone you would do." "What is that?" "Punishing me because Dad chose me." I could hear her walking, opening and closing drawers. "I have not challenged his right to choose," I said. "I challenged the use of my identity." She went quiet. Then she asked, "Did you contact Leonard's family?" The question was so specific that I stopped breathing for a second. I had not mentioned Leonard. I had not mentioned the seal, the commission, or the obituary. "No," I said. "Should I?" She ended the call. By evening, relatives were calling me cruel for freezing money Celeste needed to save her home. I asked each one whether she had explained the actual problem. None of them knew. I stopped trying to win the family conversation and concentrated on the record. A week later, Andrea called again. Leonard Shaw's daughter, Melissa, had located her father's retained notary journal and provided a certified copy of the relevant page. The entry number on Celeste's pension form was real. So was our father's name. For several seconds, I felt the floor shift beneath me. Andrea continued. The entry had been recorded 5 years earlier. It described a 2-page vehicle title affidavit. The identification number matched our father's old driver's license. The signature in the journal resembled the one on the pension form. Someone had not invented Leonard's credentials from nothing. They had copied details from a legitimate transaction involving our father and attached them to a different document. "Who had access to the vehicle affidavit?" Andrea asked. "It was in the blue folders." "Who had access to those folders before you removed them?" "My father. Me. Celeste, if he let her into the study." I remembered something from the week before his final hospitalization. I had arrived at the house and found the cabinet unlocked. Celeste was in the study with a stack of papers beside her phone. She said she was looking for the deed because the bank wanted proof that our father's house was not available as collateral for her salon loan. At the time, I had been angry about the unlocked cabinet, not suspicious about the phone. Now I wondered what she had photographed. The preliminary signature review should have ended the argument. Instead, it gave Celeste her strongest defense. An outside examiner compared the form with verified examples of our father's signature. 2 weeks later, Andrea said the image appeared consistent with Raymond's handwriting, including the tremor caused by his medication. So he signed it? The examiner has not said that. She said the signature image is consistent with known examples. Further image analysis is pending. I understood the difference intellectually. Emotionally, I heard only one thing. The signature was his. Celeste learned about the preliminary result through her own notice from the plan. Within an hour, she posted a message to our family group. The handwriting expert confirmed Dad's signature. I hope the people attacking his memory can finally let him rest. She did not use my name. She did not need to. Aunt Denise called and asked whether I was satisfied now. "No," I said. "What else could you possibly want?" "A form signed by a living notary would be a start." She sighed. "Maybe Celeste fixed the notarization because your father signed it but did not finish the process. That would be wrong, but it would not mean she stole his wishes." That possibility had already occurred to me. It was the most dangerous version because it made Celeste's conduct easier to excuse. If our father truly signed the form, then the dead notary might be treated by the family as a technical shortcut rather than the foundation of a false claim. The medical records made that possibility stronger. My father's physician confirmed that he remained mentally competent during the weeks before his death. He was physically weak. He sometimes became exhausted during long conversations. But he knew his accounts, recognized family members, and understood the consequences of financial decisions. I could not argue that he lacked capacity. I also did not want to turn his illness into a weapon simply because his choice might hurt me. Celeste sent me a private message after the doctor's statement was added to the review. Maybe the truth hurts because you thought taking care of him meant you owned his decisions. I read it twice and placed my phone face down. The sentence was cruel because it touched a fear I had not admitted. Had I confused responsibility with closeness? Had my father trusted me with his bills while reserving his tenderness for the daughter who needed rescuing? Had I spent years proving I could carry everything, only to teach him that I required nothing? For 2 days, I considered withdrawing my challenge to the beneficiary designation and limiting the dispute to the misuse of my identity. Then Andrea called with another development. The pension archive contained a recorded call from my father 6 weeks before he died. In the call, he asked how to increase one daughter's share of the survivor benefit. He explained that Celeste's salon was failing and that her mortgage was close to foreclosure. Andrea could access only an abbreviated system summary. The full recording had to be retrieved from an older archive. The summary did not identify the percentage he wanted to assign. It did not show whether a form had been sent. It only confirmed that our father had discussed changing the benefit because Celeste needed money. Celeste's attorney immediately submitted the call summary as support for her claim. Celeste played relatives a voicemail in which our father promised to make sure she was all right. For the first time, even I could see how the essential shape of her story might be true. Perhaps he had signed the form, and she had improperly completed the notarization after his death. It would still be dishonest, but I might be fighting the result he intended. At our father's house, I found an old pension statement with a note in his handwriting, C60, M40. Leave it unless necessary. Celeste had not been excluded. She already held the larger share. The archived call might now prove whether he intended to increase it or erase me completely. The full recording arrived on a Thursday morning. Andrea asked whether I wanted to hear it during a conference call. I said yes, then closed my office door and placed both hands flat on my desk. My father's voice came through the speaker thinner than I remembered, but unmistakably his. He gave his name, employee number, and date of birth. The representative verified his identity and asked how she could help. I may need to change the percentages for my daughters, he said. The representative explained that the current designation listed Celeste at 60% and Mara at 40%. My father said Celeste was in danger of losing her home. He asked what would happen if he increased her share to 70%. The representative described the process. A new designation would replace the old one once it was properly completed and accepted. She reminded him that the decision would affect both daughters. There was a long pause. Then my father said, I want to help Celeste, but Mara's name stays. She is not to be removed. I lowered my head. The representative offered to mail a form. My father asked whether he could think about it first. Of course, she said. I do not want to make a permanent decision because Celeste has a temporary crisis. The call ended without a form being requested. For several seconds, Andrea and I said nothing. My father had considered giving Celeste more. That part of her story was true, but he had also stated the one condition her form violated completely. My name stayed. The old designation was retrieved the same day. It had been signed 4 years earlier and accepted by the plan without dispute. Celeste was entitled to 60%. I was entitled to 40%. I had spent weeks bracing myself for proof that our father chose her over me. Instead, I learned that he had already favored her financially because he believed she needed the softer landing. Celeste had not fabricated a benefit because she had been forgotten. She had fabricated exclusivity because 60% still required her to share the final page with me. Andrea warned me that the recording did not by itself prove who created the false form. It clarified intent, but the plan still needed evidence about the document's preparation and submission. That distinction mattered. Emotionally, I knew Celeste had lied about our father removing me. Institutionally, the plan still had to establish which designation controlled the benefit and whether the disputed form had ever become valid. The first hard proof arrived 2 days later. The trust's technical team examined the submission history. Celeste claimed our father signed the form on October 19th, 11 days before he died. The document was not uploaded until 2 days after the memorial. It had been submitted from the office network of Warren Pike, our father's longtime tax preparer. Warren had handled his returns for more than a decade. He possessed old identification copies, pension account numbers, and previous authorization forms. He also knew Leonard Shaw. The three men had worked in the same neighborhood for years. For the first time, the investigation appeared to extend beyond Celeste. Andrea scheduled an interview with Warren. Before it occurred, Celeste attempted to change the payment destination from her regular checking account to a newly opened account at another bank. She also requested information about taking the remaining benefit in a discounted lump sum. The plan froze further disbursements. That evening, Celeste called me. "You have made them treat me like a criminal," she said. "I did not create the dates. You know what Dad wanted. I heard what he wanted. You heard one call. I heard him say my name stays." She inhaled sharply. Until then, she had not known I had heard the full recording. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. "He changed his mind later." "Then the record should show that." "It does. The notary was dead." Silence. Then she said, "You were always better with paperwork. Dad knew you would survive. Why do you need this too?" There it was. Not a denial, not an explanation. A question about why I deserved to remain. I expected Warren Pike to be Celeste's accomplice. The form came from Warren's office, and he possessed our father's identifying information and knew the dead notary. His explanation was careless, but it was believable. 2 days after the memorial, Celeste arrived at his office carrying a folder from our father's study. She said Raymond had completed a beneficiary change before entering the hospital, but had been too sick to submit it himself. She showed Warren the signed form, the notary seal, and a short handwritten note authorizing her to finish the submission. Warren recognized the signature and Leonard's name, failed to verify either, and uploaded the pages through an account he had previously used for our father. It was reckless, but his office records supported his account. Most important, he had kept Celeste's email. She had sent the beneficiary form to him as a PDF before arriving at his office. The message read, "Dad signed this before he went back to the hospital. I need your help getting it into the system because Mara took the account information." The file metadata showed that the PDF had been created on Celeste's phone at 11:48 p.m. on the night after the memorial. It did not prove where the signature came from, but it placed the completed document in her possession before Warren scanned anything. When Andrea informed Celeste that Warren had retained the email, Celeste changed her explanation again. She no longer claimed our father had personally delivered a finished form to her. She said he had signed a blank copy weeks earlier and instructed her to complete the percentages later if his condition worsened. The story was difficult to reconcile with the form. The document contained typed beneficiary information, a specific date, and a notarization block. If our father had signed it blank, the signature had been attached to information he never reviewed. Celeste's attorney called it an incomplete family authorization rather than a forgery. Then Celeste attacked me directly. A police officer came to my home on a Monday evening and asked about financial records removed from our father's house. Celeste had reported that I took original documents without authority and might have destroyed the valid beneficiary form. She claimed the version under review was only a copy and suggested I had altered it after removing the files. The accusation was not harmless because I had taken the blue folders. I showed the officer our father's message instructing me to secure them and time-stamped photographs of every document I removed. No beneficiary form appeared in the cabinet. He documented the dispute and left without accusing me. Celeste, however, told the family that I was under investigation for stealing estate records. Relatives stopped taking my calls. Celeste was building both a family story and a paper record, in which I looked like the person interfering with official documents. 3 days later, her attorney sent me a proposed settlement. Celeste would withdraw her police complaint and agree not to seek reimbursement for legal expenses if I signed a release surrendering any claim to the pension and promising not to challenge the beneficiary designation. The release also required me to admit that I had removed records and could not verify the form was false. Evelyn Park, an attorney I consulted independently, said those admissions could weaken both my identity dispute and the plan review. "Do not sign anything you know is untrue," she said. I wrote one sentence to Celeste's attorney. I declined the proposed release. That was the moment the family relationship changed permanently. Until then, some part of me had still believed the right explanation might bring Celeste back to the boundary she had crossed. The settlement showed me that she was not trying to correct a desperate mistake. She was trying to make me certify it. The final document examination took 12 days. The examiner compared the disputed pension form with the vehicle affidavit from Leonard Shaw's journal. At first glance, the signatures merely looked alike. Under magnification, they became identical. The same tiny gap appeared in the second stroke of the E. The same ink skip crossed the final N. Even the edge distortion created by the old scanner appeared in both images. A person can produce similar signatures. A person cannot reproduce the same accidental defects twice. Our father's signature had been lifted from the vehicle affidavit and placed on the pension form as an image. The notary seal came from the same source. The PDF from Celeste's email still contained separate editing layers for the signature, seal, and typed beneficiary information. The handwritten authorization shown to Warren contained phrases copied from an old tax instruction our father had written years earlier. Andrea did not tell me how the layers had been created. She did not need to. The document carried its own construction history. Celeste's attorney argued that she had only reconstructed paperwork our father intended to complete. That explanation admitted more than it denied. An intention was not a signature. Concern was not authorization. A private conversation about 70% did not become permission to manufacture 100. The plan scheduled a formal review. The meeting took place in a conference room at the Pension Trust's regional office. Andrea sat beside the plan's counsel. Warren attended with his attorney. Evelyn sat beside me. Celeste arrived 10 minutes late wearing our father's gold watch. She began confidently. "My father wanted me protected," she said. "Everyone in this room knows that. Mara is using paperwork to overturn his final wishes." Andrea did not argue. She opened a file. First, she confirmed the disputed form's date, October 19th. Then she placed Leonard Shaw's obituary beside it. "Mr. Shaw died on February 11th. Celeste looked at her attorney. "Dad signed it earlier." Andrea displayed the revision code. "This version of the form was created in May, 3 months after Mr. Shaw died." Celeste shifted in her chair. Andrea produced the notary journal. The entry number belonged to a vehicle title affidavit completed 5 years earlier. Then came the technical report showing that our father's signature and Leonard's seal had been copied from that affidavit. Warren's email appeared next. The attached PDF had been created on Celeste's phone after the memorial. Its internal layers showed the imported images. Celeste's attorney said the evidence proved poor preparation, not intent. Andrea played our father's call. His voice filled the room. "I want to help Celeste, but Mara's name stays. She is not to be removed." Celeste stared at the table until the recording ended. Then she said, "He changed his mind." "Where is the record of that?" I asked. She looked at me. "You know how worried he was about me." "That is not what I asked. He said I would be all right. He gave you 60%. Her expression changed. For 1 second, the anger disappeared, and something more honest took its place. "You had everything else," she said. The room remained silent. I understood then that the pension had never been only about money. I had the keys, the passwords, the medical information, and our father's trust in practical matters. Celeste had interpreted every responsibility he gave me as evidence that I was the chosen daughter. The 60% did not soothe that wound, because my name still appeared beside hers. I had the work, I said. You already had the larger benefit. You never needed it. That did not give you permission to erase me. Plan counsel explained the result in measured language. The disputed designation had not been validly executed and had been submitted after our father's death. It would not control the benefit. The last accepted designation, 60% to Celeste and 40% to me, would be restored. The payment Celeste had received under the false claim would be reviewed as an overpayment and recovered from amounts otherwise payable to her. Her attempted lump sum transfer was canceled. The document findings would be referred to the appropriate authorities and insurers for independent review. No one placed her in handcuffs. No judge appeared. The institution simply removed the advantage created by the false form and preserved the record of how it had been made. That was enough. Celeste followed me into the parking lot. Without the sole beneficiary payment, she could not cover her mortgage arrears, salon debt, and legal fees. She asked me to lend her enough to prevent foreclosure. For years, I would have separated the crisis from the person who created it. I would have told myself her daughter needed stability, or our father would have wanted peace. This time, I did not calculate what I could afford. Dad gave you more because he believed I would survive without help, I said. You turned his concern into permission to erase me. I will not carry the consequences of that decision. She called me cold. I handed our father's watch to Evelyn, who arranged for it to be returned to the estate inventory. Then I walked to my car. The plan restored the valid designation. I received 40%. Celeste retained her 60%, reduced by the overpayment review and whatever costs followed from her own choices. I ended the automatic transfers I had been making toward my niece's tuition and Celeste's household emergencies. I did not demand her share. I did not ask the family to apologize. Official records had already corrected the story that mattered. Months later, Aunt Denise asked whether I regretted not helping Celeste save the salon. No, I said. I regret how long we taught her that someone else would always absorb the result. My father had not left a perfect decision. He had worried more about the child who stumbled than the one who kept standing. But he had drawn one clear boundary. Mara's name stays. Celeste's punishment was not that I defeated her or took what belonged to her. She kept the larger share our father had legally given her. Her punishment was simpler. For the first time, she had to carry the consequences she had prepared for someone else. Sometimes people do not betray you because they received too little. They betray you because your name still appears beside theirs.